welcome to our class today, Establishing a Risk Management Framework for Clinical Trial Conduct and Oversight. Our webinar today is going to address what do I need to have in place to implement risk management in our clinical trials arena. As we know, with the ICH E6 proposed revisions, risk management has taken a big role and addendum into that new regulatory guideline, but also a number of people are also trying to be more proactive in how they're managing their clinical trials. But we know that it's beyond the checklists and the tools. And what I'm going to be presenting to you today is the high-level overview of the framework, benchmarking to ISO 31000, which is a standard that's used in many industries, not just clinical research. FDA and other regulatory bodies have been referencing this framework as well. We're going to be talking about this, but also we're going to be mixing it in with the clinical trial context for us. And it's really important to, for you to have us all understand, is that managing risk is something you do every single day, whether it's personally, whether you're waiting at the light, at the corner of a busy intersection, waiting to walk across the street, you have to wait for that walk sign to tell you to go because there's no risk. People are supposed to stop. But don't we all wait and look to make sure that car really has stopped? Correct. So again, managing risk in a clinical trial perspective, or what we're doing from business operations, from financials to operations, also is addressed inside of this type of framework. And what I would like to do is just tell you a little bit about myself. I am the Global Head of Training here at Barnett. I've been in healthcare for 37 years and 25 years in clinical research in many roles, starting as a research nurse back in the 80s at Johns Hopkins Hospital, and then coming into the industry working for sponsors and CROs in multiple roles as depicted here. I am very passionate about training, and I've published on this in education and training and developing competency methodologies. And what I want to be able to provide to you today is my passion for risk management. I know from my whole healthcare, when I was running my clinical trials, I always said, I wish we could stop and breathe and think about this. But what we need is that foundation framework. This is going to help you just understand, what do I need to have in place to take a risk management approach? The agenda for today's webinar is as follows. Review learning objectives. We're going to look at the regulator expectations of us in the industry. Going to do a brief review of protocol-related quality by design and risk management, just to do with some level setting as we come into the framework. Definition of risk, we're going to look at a couple of definitions because this is very important for you as an organization to determine what that definition is, because it's very important when you start implementing it that people understand it. We're going to do risk management overview, principles, and guidelines. I'm going to give you some information about that from the ISO framework. We're going to then go through the framework, give you some definitions, some context to what is inside of the ISO 31000 document and 31010, which is actually risk assessment techniques. What do you need to operationalize risk management in your organization? What do you need as an infrastructure at high level, also from people, personnel, and management commitment, and your culture? And then also, we're going to go through a summary. And of course, always a Q&A. Our learning objectives today is to explain the rationale for knowing your organization's definition of risk. It puts everyone on the same page. Describe the guiding principles from the ISO model, implementing a risk management framework, and describe the attributes of a risk management framework. And what I would like to say to you here right now as we begin is risk management is really the foundation inside of a quality management system, of an organizational-wide quality management system. And what it does is it helps you to be proactive, and it also is iterative. We learn as we go, right? But then also what it does, it focuses on continual improvement. It never stops. Once we learn things work or don't work and putting a procedure in place or a process in place for that very specific protocol, we're going to modify it, right? Which is continuous improvement. Because then when you go along to your next protocol and you might have a similar situation, you're going to go in and use that approach that worked. So therefore, you're going to identify the needs, use a solution that mapped 100%, and you're going to be proactive, and you're not going to have that risk necessarily. So again, that's just the true context of risk management. quality by design, let's look at this from a risk management perspective. It's so important to understand that this question is occurring in regulatory agency inspections, both here in the U.S. and Europe and other regions we have heard about. How did you manage the trial for quality? When we are embedding risk approaches, risk assessments and risk management, which is something we always wanted to do, but we're never given that time, and now we will be given this time. We say we identified that this product we were going to mix, and it had to be actually infused over 5 minutes, which was different than standard of care. We managed for quality with that because we gave a specific procedure for that. We gave specific instructions and training with the sites. We confirmed the day before they're going to dose the patient, their verbal understanding of the process. We also had a worksheet that they had to complete and make sure that this was then documented in the source precisely. That's how you manage for quality, everyone. You identified something that was different than is usually done in practice, and those are all those ways you control it, how you keep it from becoming a problem. And that's an example of how you manage for quality all the time. And that situation actually occurred with one of my studies.